Hey Nokers, Darcy here. Yeah, I'm outside. I'm enjoying the one beautiful day of weather. It might be the one day of summer that we have here in Wyoming every year. The first day of summer, we actually had sub-zero temperatures. Well, not sub-zero, but below freezing temperatures and snow up on top of the mountain behind me. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to talking about protagonists. I'm going to talk about having a great protagonist. The protagonist is the main character of your story. It is through their eyes your story is told. You kind of want to pick the person who has the most at stake, the most to lose. And sometimes it may not be the person you think. For example, when I wrote my third book, Catch, which comes out this fall, I sent the first part to my bloodthirsty crypt partners, whom you all know and love very well, and they said it was terrible. And then I rewrote it, and they still didn't like it. And then I rewrote it again, and they still didn't like it. And I rewrote it again. And they were just like, this isn't working. And then finally, I believe it was Becca, said, hey, wait a minute. What if you wrote from Wendy's perspective? Now, if you've read my books, you know that Wendy Wetz has been the antagonist of the first two books. Well, she kind of becomes the protagonist in the third book, and I write that third book through her point of view because really and truly, it is her story to tell. It is the completion of her character arc. Yes, Kisri's is completed as well, but Kisri kind of went through her major changes in the second book and dealt with some major stuff there. Now it's Wendy's turn. The moment I started writing from Wendy's point of view, my crypt partners were like, oh, this is it. And the book just flew. I wrote an entire 68,000 word novel in 5 weeks. Okay, granted, Kim can do it in 4 days, but for me, 5 weeks is pretty impressive. All that to say, sometimes you need to think a little extra hard about who your protagonist is going to be. Now, the purpose of the protagonist is not just to tell the story, it's to draw your reader into the story. Therefore, your protagonist has to be somebody your reader relates to. When you open up in Act 1, you have to show them in their ordinary world, probably dealing with a problem in their ordinary world, otherwise it's boring. We don't want to really see them cooking dinner or sitting at their desk counting numbers because they're an accountant. We need to see them in a crisis, an everyday kind of crisis in their normal world to set a baseline for their behavior. Because as we know throughout the story, your protagonist has to change as things happen to them, as they receive the call to adventure, their status quo gets blown up. We have to see a change in them. So you want to set that baseline, but it has to be somebody that your reader can relate to. You want to make sure that they're likable in some way. And yes, I know some of you are probably saying, but that's the whole growth point, is they're unlikable and then they become likable. Well, if that's the case, then make sure that you give them what's called a pet the cat moment. Give them something that they can do that's kind of nice. They help somebody else, or you see them in a tender moment with a child. For example, in the historical that I'm running now, my antagonist, Stanley, I show him as a family man. He loves his wife, he loves his children, and he does ignoble things in order to preserve the way of life for his family. He does really evil, bad things. But we do see him as a family man. We see him as somebody who loves his wife and kids, and he does not want them to suffer. So we have that feeling of empathy toward him. You got to really make sure that you build that for your protagonist, because your readers got to stick through, 60 to 80,000 words with that person. So you got to make sure that they are tolerable. You got to make sure that they have a goal. We talked about goal, motivation, and conflict in an earlier video. You can go back and watch that one. But make sure that they're pursuing goal and that they're changing along the way. Also, try to avoid cliches. Do some research on personality types. I know Kayla's mentioned 16personalities.com and the Enneagrams. You might want to check those out as well. I will leave the explanations of those devices to the videos that she made. But anyway, research out your protagonist really well and make sure that they have a lot at stake. That's the other thing that's important. Make sure that the stakes are higher and higher and higher. As Donald Moss says, make it worse, and make it even worser. Just keep going until it almost is to the point of absurdity, and sometimes you need to step over that line. But as long as there's a good motivation behind it, it's believable and compelling. So those are some of the things that I have to say about your protagonist. I want you to take a moment and look at your book and try to decide, am I using the right character as my protagonist, or do I have a more effective protagonist hiding in the secondary character cast that I can pull out and use in place? Don't forget to give us a like, share this channel with your friends, and subscribe. That way you'll know when new content comes out. And don't forget to check out our website at therightnook.com. This is Darcy with Pen to Paper. Until next time, see you later, Nookers.